Greetings, Guardians, my name is Byfear. So, the Sundered Doctrine dungeon quest has concluded, and the major revelation of what's in the vault at the end of the dungeon is about as impactful as I thought it might be, even if my prediction that I originally had was completely wrong. Today we're going to talk about the secret in the heart of Rhulk's pyramid, why Savathûn and the Dread were seeking it, why we absolutely cannot let it fall into their hands, and why it is one of the craziest revelations we've had in a while. So, what's at the heart of the vault? Well, after getting to the end of the Drowning Labyrinth quest, and after deciphering all the secrets of the dungeon, we eventually get to the point where we've fully accessed the codes of the pyramid, and have gained a measure of context and control. From there, our quest is to return to the door that the Dread were trying to access, the vault at the end of the dungeon. Behind this door, Karev believed they would find the means to change themselves, to make themselves better and to forge their own destiny. Knowing now what lies behind the door, I cannot help but think that Karev was right. But I couldn't possibly have guessed what we'd find behind it. After arriving at the door, our long input code to the pyramid would be accepted and would tell us a story. The symbols would read a message roughly equating to: the Hive grieve the darkness, the Black Fleet remembers the witness, the Worm gives unto the Guardian. With such a code having been discovered and entered, the door was unsealed. This is what we found in the vault.
As Evil Arath has her hammer, and Savathûn her scalpel, so the king wields a chisel. With it I carve the tablets of ruin. Anywhere I make my mark, there I create the world anew. There I cut death into the shape of my victory. So it is written. So it is. Ayat.
Brother, that Rhulk stepped on even the shadow of Oryx's robes, that he dared to lock away Oryx's secrets. And I, never aware of his tools within my court. I'll break down those walls sooner or later. You can bet your boots on that, Guardian.
There aren't always discoveries that change the nature of destiny at a fundamental level nowadays. This is one of them, and I think the fundamental level of power that this thing represents is worth talking about in depth. This is the Taken King Oryx's chisel. It is what he used to carve the Tablets of Ruin. But why does all that matter? Well, I've explained this a few times this season, but it matters because the Tablets of Ruin are what's holding the record of Oryx's power and his ability to take. Remember that the power to take isn't just the ability to create the Taken, it's the ability to move things between dimensions, sending them into the extra-dimensional realm known as the Deep. A space that is assumed to be a part of the Ascendant Plane. Whole planets can be sent to this place, as can ships and individual warriors. When they return, they are infested with blight, and they become antithetical to life itself. The warriors sent into the deep become the Taken. They are hollowed out and made sharp by some unseen hand, which we now assume is the Winnower itself. They are returned as compliant beings searching for a will strong enough to lead them, and they will follow the commands of that will to their death. But the power of the tablets Oryx created also allowed him to speak to the deep itself by passing into the abyss and exploring its furthest reaches. There he used the tablets to find purchase, and he was able to create a vessel to summon the Winnower itself into a temporary physical form, where it spoke to Oryx and showed him many terrible things. The tablets themselves are a terrifying source of power, but so is the chisel which was used to carve them. I say this because I think the chisel is also linked to some of that same primal power of taking, and might also have the ability to allow one to commune with the deep. In fact, I think that's its exact purpose, and the nature of its creation might reveal quite a few secrets about the dungeon, as well as a reason why Savathun herself wants it. I am going to make one very big assumption here, which is that this chisel is made from the remains of a worm god, namely Akka, the Worm of Secrets. To recap and explain why I believe this to be the case, I think we need to go ahead and read a portion of the Books of Sorrow that pertains to the creation of the tablets and the moments that came just before that. It's the moment where Oryx learns the power to take. It's the moment where he ascends into the Taken King. This is the coronation of Oryx, the Taken King. It happened thus. In the cold abyss of the Sword World, King Urash walked under a cloak of green fire. He walked through the sky, and the sky shuddered and froze beneath his feet. He walked until he found Akka, the Worm of Secrets, who was denying a truth until it became a lie. Akka, my god, Worm of Secrets, I am Ulrix, sole king of the Hive. I have come to receive a secret. I want the secret power of the deep, which you hold. I give no secrets, said Akka, whose voice was code. No, said Ulrix. You give nothing. Giving is for the sky. You worship the deep, which asks that we take what we need. Akka said nothing, because if it denied this truth, the truth might become false. But you gave us your larvae, the worm, said Ulrix, and that is why the worm devours us now, because it was given, not taken. So I must take what I need from you, although you are my god. Said Akka, you have not the strength. But this was a lie. Ulrix had killed Savathun, his sibling, and Zivur Arath, his sibling, and he had the sword logic of killing them. Ulrix, the first navigator, set upon his god with his sword and his words, and cut Akka to pieces, and took from those pieces the secret of calling upon the deep. He wrote this secret on a set of tablets, which he called the Tablets of Ruin, and he wore them about his waist. Then Ulrix said, now I may speak to the deep, the beautiful final shape. I will be king of shapes. I will learn all the secrets of our destiny. His speech to the deep is not recorded here, but it is known that he returned, and he said, now I am Oryx, the Taken King, and I have the power to take life and make it my own. Then he went out into the universe and fought the Ecumene with his tablets, and the worm, his god, was pleased. This is what I think matters. Oryx took the secret of calling upon the deep, the secret power that can be used to commune with the Winnower, from the remains of Akka, and based on the aesthetic of the chisel and the way it presents itself, I think that's literally what we're seeing here. I think this is part of the secret that Oryx drew from Akka. I think the chisel of the Taken King is actually the remnants of the worm god itself. There are quite a few things that this helps to explain if this is true, but before we get to that, I think we should acknowledge that again, this is only an educated guess. That being said, sides of the chisel do actually look like the chitinous armor of a worm god, albeit interlaid with other material. And more critically, the chisel radiates Taken power at its base. It might well have the power to carve those secrets of taking upon further tablets. But what other context exists around this artifact? Well, first of all, its mere function and existence explains why Rolk was so keen to hide it deep in the most secure vault of his pyramid. The artifact can access the true secrets of darkness, that surpass even the witness itself, and Rorke is a collector, if nothing else. This was clearly also a means to power that Rorke was saving for a worthy foe, or perhaps for the right opportunity. A shame he didn't recognize us as a worthy foe when we strode forth into his own pyramid and struck him down. But there's a few more interesting things that this can help us theorize about. The one at the forefront of my mind is simply this: the mechanics of the third encounter of Sundered Doctrine. For those that don't know, in order to deal damage to Karev's shields in full, you need to light up symbols on the circular wheel at the middle of the third encounter room. If you light up an incorrect combination of symbols, the shields will be damaged but will not be broken, and you'll lose a phase. The real change, however, is based on the idea of what statements you light up, whether they are true or whether they are false. You might get a pair of statements through the symbols that are displayed on the wheel. There's always 3 on the left and 3 on the right, and when you combine each of the 3 pictograms that make up those left and right sides, you get a statement and a sentence. It's typically made up of a verb and 2 nouns. For example, let's say you get something like Traveler give light on the left and Guardian worship witness. Those are 2 statements, but only one is true. Traveler give light. The other is false. For some reason, deilluminating the truth and illuminating the lie is what causes the shields to take enough damage to break. And I have a theory as to why that is now. Simply put, I think Arca's remains and the essence that makes up part of the Chisel of Oryx is actually integrated into the defense mechanisms of the vault itself. It then makes me wonder if the worms that are integrated into this defense system are actually clones or remnants of Arca. I don't think that they would have been able to grab the entirety of Arca, considering that, well, the rest of it armors the Dreadnought. However, it's entirely possible, given Rorke's experiments and the many dead worms that lie about this place, that he might have been able to get at least some facet of Arca's power, and through that, Arca's penchants for truth and lies. When we reread what happened to Arca in the Books of Sorrow, we get critical notes relating to Arca's relationship with truth and lies. Namely, the moment where Oryx found Arca, the Worm of Secrets, who was denying a truth until it became a lie. This talks about just the sheer ontological power that the worm gods hold. However, there are also moments where Arca says, "I give no secrets," which is a code. It's telling a truth honestly there, because if it lied or denied that truth, the truth itself might be changed and might become a lie. Then we have this other moment where Arca says nothing after Oryx recites another truth about how he cannot simply give Oryx the secret of communing with the deep. Arca says nothing here once again, because if it denied this truth, it would potentially become a lie. All this dialogue about Arca stating lies and refusing to deny the truth seems to sort of align in a very messy sort of fashion with what's happening here in Encounter 3. When we light up the lie on the wheel at the heart of the vault, we see the worm react more violently to such a statement. I think the worm's fiery blast is a remnant of Arca speaking. If you light up a truth, it turns silent, as perhaps if it is to deny that truth, it might irrevocably change it. When inputting a lie, though, Arca's essence is fully able to interact with such a statement, as it is already a lie. It's a messy theory for sure, but currently it's actually my best guess as to why the mechanism requires us to illuminate the lie on the board as opposed to the truth. Not guaranteed to be the case, but potentially an interesting one. I think the area the chisel was being held in now also has a little bit more context. If we're to believe that Arca's spirit resides within the chisel, or at very least some of its remains, the dead worms in proximity to the chisel's vault are all likely to be either those clones of Arca that I was talking about in a very rare and weird circumstance, or they are experiments that gorged on some of Arca's power perhaps, that are children of Zeta. This is all speculative and guesswork. We don't know the identity of these worms or their true origin, so there is no true confirmation. The likelihood, if we're to take Occam's razor, is that they are indeed the children of Zeta, and that none of them have a relation to Akka. But if we are to take that little jump and assume that Akka's spirit remains within the chisel, then, well, maybe seeing all of these dead worms might have actually changed Akka's mind on a thing here or there. They were, after all, his long-lost siblings, if they were taken from Zeta as larvae. Watching his own kind, his own brothers and sisters, being massacred for so long and in such numbers might have had an effect on whatever remained of Akka, if his soul were to have remained. The worms, as a rule, tend to feel no sympathy, but being in the clutches of the subjugator once more, and seeing his vile experiments, might have nurtured some spite or resentment within Akka. Our slaying of Rolk is perhaps one of the things that ingratiated us with the spirit of this dead worm, or perhaps with all of the spirits of the dead worms here. And of course, the final 3 symbols on the door basically read, "The worm gives unto the guardian," implying that at least a worm, perhaps one of the dead ones, or maybe Akka, might be giving us this tool, might be opening the vault door for us. It implies that Akka, if he does exist within the chisel, has gone a little bit soft over the years. Perhaps now that it's been dead and reforged, it has had a change of heart regarding what it can and cannot bequeath to us. After all, it doesn't usually give anything. I am wagering that its death at the hands of Oryx and its imprisonment by Rolk has changed that somewhat. The final mystery of all of this lies within the potential of the chisel itself, regardless of whether it is or isn't the remnants of an ancient worm god. It may be in Vanguard custody, like the thousands of other cursed objects from throughout the system, but it's also a major power that we absolutely need to either destroy or control. Simply put, I think that under the right circumstances and with the right degree of will and inclination, the chisel can essentially become a map to apotheosis. In other words, it allows you to follow in Oryx's footsteps and gain godlike powers. If the chisel was used to carve the tablets, then it too might contain the secrets of the power to take. This, of course, is also only doubled up if it is indeed made from the remains of the worm god Akka. Secrets that have been long recorded in Oryx's Tablet of Ruin might still reside within the chisel. These secrets would otherwise have been lost to time, but now one might be able to use this chisel to forge their own Tablets of Ruin. One could potentially use these to obtain the same power that Oryx once had. This would be bad enough if one simply used it to create a new army of Taken, but that pales in comparison to the actual purpose of the chisel and the tablets. The tablets allow you to chart the darkest reaches of the deep, and to converse with the Winnower itself. The way that both Savathun and the Dread referred to this power seems to imply that the Winnower would potentially look to change them, and to potentially allow them to ascend into something more. And after all, what was it that Savathun said in the quest dialogue for Sundered Doctrine? You know, when you pick up some of the worms.
Plenty of beings crave a strong hand on the wheel. A hierarchy is comforting. You always know where you stand. What a stultifying way to live. What an unimaginative game, where pieces always move as they're told. I'm escaping them all, honey. Hierarchies, games. But if a piece wants to place itself in my hands, who am I to say no?
Fascinating. She's played with that idea of escaping hierarchies before. There's been web lore, and the Collector's Edition lore also touches on it, but it also reminds me of Queen's Part 2, the adventure from the Final Shape, that's post-campaign content which helps us to unlock aspects and fragments on our classes. Take a listen to some excerpts from that. It concerns both the Taken power and this same idea of ascension.
Mara Sab, so eager to spar with gods at the drop of a hat. Aren't you tired of losing to me?
I seem to recall your logic rebuked. Your ghost being imprisoned by the Vanguard. That tastes of anything but loss.
The sword logic was always tarnished. But your bomb logic also went down in flames. Quite spectacularly, if I do say so myself. 2 queens. Failed by ideology. We adapt or die, and it's a new age. Isn't that right, Your Majesty? Do you see it yet? The end of our little game, buried between memory and material.
Between dark and light. What trinket from the past holds your attention so?
Not a trinket, a perspective. The knowledge of angles, of edges, and the points at which they end. A convincing argument from Sister Superior, you could say.
Whoa. Lara, what did you do?
Placed a finger on the scales. The darkness inside of you is surging, like standing on the threshold of being taken. You see how they see. Savathun's plan was never about hiding anything, but revelation. Look for what is out of place, and bend it back.
We play an unwinnable game, meant to extend on forever. And I've shown you how to change the rules time and time again, without even a thank you.
Wait, I feel light, but it's out of phase. A light fissure, but it exists in an entirely different state of matter than we can normally perceive.
But the Taken can.
Ah, you figured it out, just in time. Here they come now.
So, the key is the ability to perceive the world as the Taken do. Savathun wants that power for some reason. It's not entirely clear why there are sources of strange light out of phase with the rest of the world, but it is clear that she wants to use whatever power is found there to escape the hierarchies of the universe. The sword and bomb logic, the struggles of life and mortality, and hierarchy, the endless wars between civilizations. Savathun wants to play a different game than the one that she is born into. She wants to ascend beyond it. She has always sought this ability, to go into higher realities, and thus achieve victory in all lower ones. I think it is for these purposes that Savathun sees potential within the Chisel. So did the Dread. They believe that with such power, they could remake themselves, understanding that they would be able to make themselves more powerful through the creation of further tablets or by learning the secrets of taking. I think that the Dread might well have been correct. The Chisel and its power are dangerous and should be kept out of the hands of Savathun above all else, but I think that there might actually be a major revelation to all of this that has come along as well. It seems like the power of the Taken will come into play in future events, not just in Heresy as we reach the end of the episode in Acts 2 and 3, but with Destiny generally. There's a trend line here. It starts with everything we've learned in the final shape, and it continues on through Heresy. It leads somewhere. Inexorably, I think it leads to the Winnower. Everyone and everything seems to be reaching headlong into the deep and towards the power at its heart. But they aren't always reaching as a means of proving the sword logic. A lot of them are reaching with the belief that they will be able to obtain a completely different power. If we're to understand all of this, I believe we need to investigate the power of taking further, as well as the Taken Remnant, the Echo of the Navigator, and the Chisel itself. There is a darkness to that power that Savathun desires. Her greater objective has always been to escape this reality and to ascend into a higher one to assure her eternal victory. In doing so, she might become a god of a completely different variety, perhaps one similar to the kind Oryx aspired to be. He wished to model himself after death, so that he would become axiomatic and inseparable from it. In other words, where there was death, he would also be. And through such terror and association with the eternal night of death, Oryx would live on forever, not simply as a thing, but as an idea, as a law of the universe, like gravity or time. There's a mystery to all of this. I can feel the pieces falling into place slowly, like droplets of rain running down a window until they pool at its base, becoming something clearer, greater, ready to trickle down to the next step. Something big is afoot. And here, with the conclusion of Sundered Doctrine's Drowning Labyrinth quest, I think we've just started to uncover how deep it might go. If we're going to pursue it, I think the chisel might well be a key. But that's all from me for now. I will be doing a much more in-depth video of Sundered Doctrine at some point later on. I want to do the full kind of large lore video that you guys are expecting from this, and I also want to go ahead and cover something like this with a stream. I talked about this a little bit on the YouTube community section. You can expect me to go ahead and do this for Vesper's Host as well, and with some other raids that previously we've gone through and done before. You can expect it in particular for Vow of the Disciple. This is what I really want to target. That being said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, go ahead and leave a like, and leave your thoughts down below in the comments section. If you want more lore content from universes near and far, go ahead and hit subscribe, and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, your viewership as always is quite enough for me. And in the meantime, my name is Byf. Rhodacia ad Astra. I'll see you Starside.